Still in the U.S., the family of United States President Joe Biden has told him to stay in the race for a second term in office despite his poor debate performance. This comes as some family members criticized how his staff had prepared him for last week's face-off against challenger Donald Trump. Recall that President Joe Biden waged an intense weekend battle to save his re-election bid, but has been unable to dismiss existential questions about his candidacy that are now even more glaring than ever. As reactions continue to trail the recently conducted presidential debate, the Democratic damage control strategy have continued to argue that one bad night doesn't detract from Biden's past successes. Meanwhile, the Republicans are doubling down on the issue, arguing that all of America witnessed the performance of the presidential debate. And joining me on the wall now to discuss reactions and plans ahead, U.S. presidential election is President Emeritus, Corporate Counsel in Africa, Stephen Hayes. Mr. Hayes, thank you for joining us again.
Good afternoon. It's good to be with you again. Thank you.
Public opinion, I'm sure you're aware, has it that President Biden failed his primary assignment on debate night to prove that age is just a number and shift the focus to Donald Trump's track record. What do you think?
Well, I think public opinion is quite right. I mean, anybody watching that would have been appalled. I mean, frankly, the debate was probably the worst in American history from both candidates. But unfortunately, from President Biden's point of view, or at least his supporters, he failed miserably, and there's just simply no way around that. Commentators, even some of his own staff, have openly said that. He just seemed, for the first half hour, simply out of touch with what was going on. Was it because he was overprepared? Perhaps he spent a whole week at Camp David. I'm sure he had stock answers, and if anything goes awry from those possibilities of getting those stock answers, then confusion can come out. I've been in those situations, as most people. But this was particularly consistent for a half an hour, and I think we're going to see those segments over and over in political ads beginning in September. It's going to be very, very difficult. Absolutely.
And a lot of attention is now turned to, how important the age factor is in this election, especially seeing the reaction following the debate. But if we take a look at track record of debates of this nature, how much impact do you think they have on how Americans vote?
I don't think debates have a lot of effect. Certain ones do. This may be one of those that does. The Kennedy-Nixon debate in 1960, which was the first televised debate, had a huge impact on trends. Nixon was well ahead in the polls before at that time. He had a bad debate. Kennedy was able to really build momentum and credibility based on that. This debate could be damaging, except for the fact that in many ways President Trump he did far worse in some ways. Certainly everyone and myself would agree that in terms of winners, he won that particular debate. But the Washington Post tracked him in 30 different, very, very blatant lies. It simply is sad that we've got this situation in the United States right now in the race for president. I think, like a lot of other places in the world, I think that we need younger leadership.
You see that there's been a frantic effort on the part of the president to double down on the negative impact of that debate. He appeared at the campaign, I think, the next day, acknowledging that perhaps it doesn't talk as fast and debate as quick as it used to. But you also hear what his family is saying, encouraging him to run and also criticizing his staff for not preparing him well. Do you think we can assume it's practically impossible to impose an individual who isn't fit as president? Do you think Americans can trust what his family is saying, what the VP, for instance, is saying, and the presidency?
Well, I mean, his family is going to protect the president. His family also is invested in the presidency. They get a lot of Moray fame as well. It's just they're part of the picture, so it's going to be very hard for them to separate themselves. I think that a lot of people were hoping that the president's wife would have encouraged him long ago to step out, to be happy with a one-year term, as I think he originally did say he wanted. But that's simply not going to happen. They've invested in him. They don't want to see him out. They're invested in it too, whether they would like to admit that or not. And it's simply, he's not going to step back. And so he has to show over, not simply over one night, but he has to show now for 4 months, 3 months, that he's capable of being the president, and he's capable of staying in control. And he was on Thursday night at the debate.
The Supreme Court today is due to give its verdict on the question of whether or not President Trump can claim immunity in his election subversion charges. How critical do you think these cases have been for the Trump campaign? Could he be turning logic on its head, giving him more support than he usually would have gotten ahead of this election?
Well, he's had a lot of benefits from the court system, many of whom he appointed. If anything is obvious, it's the importance of Supreme Court appointees, which in the past I think the public hasn't put a lot of attention to. I hope in the future they do, but we're dealing with a situation now. It's going to be an interesting decision, to say the least. It should come out any minute, frankly. It is a more complex issue. You look at it on the face of logic: is the president liable for his actions like any other individual? Yes, he should be. But again, during the term, there are a lot of extra legal issues that come up. So I think it's a little more complicated case than it is. But nevertheless, I think the president should be liable like any other U.S. citizen. He is a U.S. citizen, and so he should be subject to the same laws. We'll see how the Supreme Court rules. I expect, well, I don't know what to expect, but I wouldn't be surprised if it were 6-3, 5-4 vote in favor of Trump, but we'll see.
Well, I guess we'll get to see how the two presidents now will navigate the waters ahead of this election. Thank you so much for talking to us, President Emeritus, Corporate Council in Africa, Stephen Hayes.
Thank you. My pleasure as usual. It's an honor.